Alright guys, let's dive into the infantry weapons of World War II. The Second World War saw a crazy variety of weapons being used by soldiers all over the globe. So let's check out what was actually being manufactured and used on the battlefield during this massive conflict. Most soldiers in World War II would be equipped with a bolt-action rifle. These were pretty straightforward weapons. Rounds were fired individually with a bolt being opened and closed after each shot. You'd pull the bolt back, eject the spent casing, push the bolt forward to chamber a new round, and then fire again. It was a manual process that required some skill to do quickly. The rifle was reloaded by loading a clip into the magazine. Once you emptied your rounds, you'd shove another clip in there and keep shooting. Now, the rifles commonly used by the Allies were pretty diverse depending on which country you were fighting for. The British and the Commonwealth forces used the Lee Enfield Mk3 and the No. 4 variant. These were solid, reliable rifles that British soldiers had been using for decades. The United States went with the Springfield Model 1903. This was a bolt-action rifle that had proven itself in World War I and was still getting the job done in World War II. The USSR, meanwhile, armed their troops with a Mosin-Nagant M91-30. This thing was a beast, simple, rugged, and perfect for the harsh conditions Russian soldiers faced on the Eastern Front. For the Axis powers, the rifles used were equally varied. Germany relied heavily on the Karabiner 98K, which was basically the backbone of the Wehrmacht. German soldiers loved this rifle. It was accurate, reliable, and deadly in the right hands. Japan equipped their forces with the Arisaka Type 99 and Type 38. These were lighter rifles designed for the typically smaller-statured Japanese soldiers. Italy used the Capone Modello 1891. Now, this rifle gets a bad rap in history, but Italian soldiers made do with what they had. As the war developed and technology advanced, semi-automatic rifles became way more common on the battlefield. These weapons used gas operation, which was a game-changer. They could be fired shot after shot without having to cock a bolt after each round. You just kept pulling the trigger and the gun kept firing. This gave soldiers a massive advantage in rate of fire. Some of these semi-automatic rifles include the M1 Garand for the USA. This weapon is legendary. General Patton called it the greatest battle implement ever devised. American soldiers absolutely loved this rifle because while the enemy was working their bolt between shots, Americans could just keep squeezing the trigger. The M1 carbine was another American semi-automatic that was lighter and more compact, perfect for paratroopers and vehicle crews. The USSR had the SVT-40, which was their attempt at a semi-automatic rifle. It was pretty advanced for its time, though it never fully replaced the Mosin-Nagant. Germany eventually developed the GUR-43, the answer to the American M1 Garand. It came pretty late in the war, but it showed that Germany recognized the value of semi-automatic rifles. Now let's talk about machine guns, because as it was in the First World War, the machine gun was an absolutely deadly firearm that completely changed the nature of warfare. These things could lay down devastating fire that would stop entire infantry advances in their tracks. Infantry training centered around the machine gun, and there were basically two types. You had the HMG, the heavy machine gun, which was more likely to be used in dugout positions or defensive emplacements. Then you had the LMG, the light machine gun, which was more portable and usually magazine-fed, so soldiers could carry it with them as they advanced. The German Milligram 42 is one seriously terrifying example of a general-purpose machine gun. This thing was an absolute beast. It could fire between 1,200 and 1,500 rounds per minute. Just think about that for a second. That's up to 25 bullets every single second. The sound it made was so distinctive and so scary that it earned the nickname Hitler's Buzzsaw. Allied soldiers who heard that sound knew they were in serious trouble. Other noteworthy machine guns include the drum-fed and gas-operated DP-28 used by Soviet-Russian forces. This thing had a distinctive pan magazine on top that made it look kinda weird, but it worked. The British had the top-mounted magazine Bren gun, which was actually based on a Czech design. The Brits adopted it, and it became one of their most reliable weapons throughout the war. And the U.S. forces had the Browning automatic rifle, better known as the BAR. This was technically a light machine gun, though it was heavy as hell to carry around. But it put out serious firepower, and American infantry squads built their tactics around it. The submachine gun was designed to fire pistol ammunition at short range, and by the Second World War, These weapons had become way more developed and common than they were in World War I. The Thompson SMG is a perfect example, used by gangsters in the 1920s. Yeah, the same gun Al Capone's boys were using. The Thompson found itself in the hands of US and British forces during the war. It's that iconic gun you see in all the old movies with a drum magazine. The British found the Thompson to be reliable and effective, but it was expensive to manufacture. So they developed their own mass-produced SMG called the STEN gun. This thing was way cheaper and super simple to manufacture, which was great for wartime production. The downside? It had a nasty habit of jamming at the worst possible times. But hey, when you need millions of guns quickly, you make trade-offs. These submachine guns were also distributed to resistance groups in Nazi-occupied Europe. The STEN was perfect for this because you could literally make them in workshops and garages. The PP-41 used by Soviet forces was another cheap machine gun to manufacture. It was incredibly effective on the battlefield with its 71-round drum magazine. Soviet soldiers could lay down a ton of firepower with this weapon, and they produced them by the millions. Lastly, the German Army's MP-40 with its 32-round magazine was used extensively by infantrymen, paratroopers, and platoon and squad leaders. You've definitely seen this gun in war movies. It's the iconic German submachine gun. Now here's where things get really interesting. Germany produced a new, innovative weapon in the late part of the war called the STG-44, also known as a machine and pistol 44. This thing was revolutionary. It was a unique in-between of a rifle and a submachine gun, firing a shorter 7.92 by 33 mm Coach round. This wasn't quite as powerful as a full rifle round, but it was way more powerful than pistol ammunition. The genius was that it could fire either semi-automatically or fully automatically, giving soldiers incredible flexibility. This weapon would go on to inspire post-war assault rifles like the famous AK-47. When you look at an AK-47, you can see the design influence from the STG-44. Hitler actually initially opposed this weapon because he wanted traditional rifles, but once he saw how effective it was, he changed his mind. By then it was too late in the war to make a real difference, but it showed the future of infantry weapons.